The fluorescent lights of the Silver Spoon Diner buzzed overhead like agitated insects as Nora Sullivan wiped down the last booth. Her feet ached in a way that transcended physical pain, the kind of exhaustion that settled into bones after a 14-hour shift. Outside, rain hammered against the windows, turning the street into a river of reflected neon. "Just lock up when you're done, hun," called Bernie, the night manager, already halfway out the door with his jacket pulled over his head. "Storm's getting worse." Nora waved him off, grateful for the silence that followed his departure. Tuesday. Nights were always slow, and tonight the weather had kept even the regulars away. She'd made maybe $40 in tips, barely enough to cover her bus fare for the week. At 28, she'd imagined her life would look different by now. College had fallen through when her father got sick. The medical bills had consumed everything. And even after he passed, the debt remained like a ghost, haunting every decision. She was counting the register when the door chimed. Nora looked up, ready to explain they were closed, but the words died in her throat. A man stumbled through the entrance, soaked to the skin, his expensive-looking suit rumpled and stained. He moved with the unsteady gait of someone who'd had far too much to drink, one hand braced against the wall for support. "Sorry, we're actually closed," Nora said gently, her natural compassion overriding her exhaustion. The man looked at her with unfocused eyes. His hair, dark and shot through with silver, hung in wet strands across his forehead. Despite his condition, something about him seemed out of place. The watch on his wrist caught the light as he gestured vaguely. "I need coffee," he slurred. "Please, just coffee." Nora hesitated. Every instinct told her to help, but she'd learned caution working late shifts in this neighborhood. Still, something about his desperation felt genuine rather than threatening. "All right," she said finally. "1 cup, then I really do need to close." She guided him to a booth, noting how he moved like someone fighting against their own body. Once seated, he slumped forward, his head in his hands. Nora started a fresh pot of coffee, watching him from the corner of her eye. His suit, despite its wrinkled state, looked expensive. The fabric had that quality she'd only seen in department store windows, the kind of clothing that cost more than her monthly rent. "Rough night?" she asked, bringing over the steaming mug. He laughed, a sound without humor. "Rough year? Rough decade?" His words were thick, barely coherent. "Do you know what it's like to have everything and feel nothing?" Nora sat across from him, her shift technically over anyway. "Can't say I do. Most days I'm just trying to keep the lights on." He lifted his head, and for a moment his eyes cleared slightly. "Honest, that's rare." "Where do you live?" Nora asked. "Is there someone I can call?" The man fumbled in his pocket, producing a wallet so waterlogged the leather had darkened. He pulled out a card, but his hands shook so badly it fell to the table. Nora picked it up, reading an address in Berkshire Heights, the kind of neighborhood where houses had names instead of numbers. "That's miles from here." "How did you even get downtown?" "Walked," he mumbled. Needed to walk, needed to think. Took something. Shouldn't have. Everything's spinning. Alarm bells rang in Nora's mind. "What did you take? Do you need a hospital?" "No hospitals, no doctors. Just want to go home." He looked at her with sudden intensity. "Will you help me? Please. Everyone wants something from me. You don't even know who I am." Nora studied him. Despite his condition, despite the strangeness of the situation, she sensed he was telling the truth. She thought of her own father, how many times strangers had helped him when the illness made him confused and lost. "Okay," she said. "But you're drinking that coffee first, and I'm keeping your wallet until we get there." She called a rideshare on her phone, but the wait time showed 40 minutes in the storm. Her old Honda was parked out back, temperamental but functional. Against her better judgment, she made a decision. 20 minutes later, they were driving through streets that grew progressively cleaner and wider. The man dozed in the passenger seat, occasionally mumbling phrases that made no sense. Shareholders? Meeting, he muttered once. Board of directors. Another time. 32 billion means nothing. Nora assumed he was rambling, perhaps dreaming of a life he wished he had. She'd seen enough desperate people at the diner to recognize the signs of someone at rock bottom. The expensive suit was probably stolen or bought in better times now, long past. The GPS led them to a gate that made Nora's heart sink. This wasn't just a nice neighborhood. The property stretched back into darkness, the house barely visible behind walls and security systems. She was about to turn around, certain. She'd gotten the wrong address when the gate began to open. Vincent Hayes, a voice crackled through an intercom she hadn't noticed. We've been looking everywhere. Thank God. Two men in dark suits emerged from a security booth, approaching the car with obvious relief. One opened the passenger door while the other came to Nora's window. Thank you so much, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We've had people searching for hours. However much you want, name it. Nora shook her head, confused and suddenly anxious. I just wanted to make sure he got home safe. That's all. The man in the passenger seat was being helped out, more alert. Now, with the security team supporting him. He turned back to look at Nora through the rain. You're a good person, he said, words still slurred but clearer. Better than you know. Before Nora could respond, they were guiding him toward the house. The man at her window pressed something into her hand, business cards maybe, but she was too overwhelmed to look. She just wanted to get home, to process what had just happened. As she drove away, Nora glanced at what he'd given her. A simple, white card with a phone number and a name, Thomas Brennan, executive assistant. She tucked it into her purse and forgot about it, focused on getting home before the storm got worse. It never occurred to her to wonder who Vincent Hayes was, or why his home looked like a fortress. In her world, the wealthy were as distant as movie stars, their lives playing out in a different reality altogether. Tomorrow she'd be back at the diner, back to the grind, and tonight would become just another strange story to tell Joanna over coffee. The rain continued to fall as Nora disappeared into the night, unaware that everything was about to change. Nora's phone wouldn't stop ringing. She stared at the screen through bleary eyes, confused by the unfamiliar number that had called 6 times in the last hour. It was barely 8 in the morning, her only day off this week, and she'd planned to sleep until noon. The events of last night felt like a fever dream, already fading into the background of her exhausted mind. On the 7th call, she answered. Hello? Miss Sullivan? Nora Sullivan? The voice was crisp, professional, urgent. Yes? Who is this? My name is Thomas Brennan. We met briefly last night when you brought Mr. Hayes home. I apologize for calling so early, but this is quite urgent. Have you seen the news this morning? Nora sat up, her small apartment bedroom suddenly feeling too cramped. No, I just woke up. What's going on? There was a pause, the sound of muffled conversation in the background. Miss Sullivan, I think it would be better if we met in person. Mr. Hayes would like to thank you properly for your kindness. Would you be available this afternoon? Look, I don't need thanks. I just helped someone get home. That's it. I understand. But please just turn on your television, any news channel, then call me back at this number. The line went dead. Nora's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the remote. She didn't own much, but the small television had been a gift from her mother last Christmas. She clicked it on, flipping to the local news station. Her own face stared back at her from the screen. It was grainy, clearly pulled from security footage, showing her helping a man into her car outside the diner. The headline scrolling beneath read, Waitress rescues missing tech billionaire Vincent Hayes. No, Nora whispered. No, no, no. The anchor's voice filled her tiny apartment. Vincent Hayes, the notoriously private founder and CEO of Helix Technologies, was found late last night after disappearing for nearly 18 hours. Sources say Hayes, whose net worth is estimated at $47 billion, was experiencing a mental health crisis and had taken an undisclosed substance before wandering away from his estate. He was discovered at a downtown diner by Waitress, Nora Sullivan, who drove him home not knowing his identity. The segment continued, showing file footage of a man in an expensive suit at various tech conferences and charity events. He looked different than he had last night, more polished, more present, but it was undeniably the same person. Nora's phone rang again. This time it was Joanna Chen, her best friend since high school. "Are you watching this?" Joanna's voice was, pitched high with excitement. "Nora, do you have any idea who you helped last night? Vincent Hayes practically invented cloud computing. He's one of the richest people in the country." "I had no idea," Nora said weakly. "He just looked like someone who needed help." "This is incredible. Have they contacted you yet? The news stations are going crazy trying to find you. I've already had 2 reporters call me asking if I know you." "How did they even get your number?" "Social media, probably." "Nora, this is huge. You could write your own ticket here. Do you know what this could mean for you?" But Nora wasn't listening anymore. She was watching the news cycle through more information about Vincent Hayes, mental health struggles, recent reclusive behavior, a company worth hundreds of billions, board members expressing concern, stockholders nervous about leadership stability. She'd driven a man worth $47 billion home in her beat-up Honda. The next 3 hours passed in a blur. Nora's phone became unusable, overwhelmed with calls and messages from numbers she didn't recognize. News vans appeared outside her apartment building. Her landlord called, annoyed about the disruption. Her mother called, crying, half worried, and half thrilled. Finally, unable to take it anymore, Nora called Thomas Brennan back. "I'll meet with him," she said, "but somewhere private. I can't leave my apartment without being mobbed." "We'll send a car. 20 minutes. The vehicle that arrived was sleek and black, with tinted windows that made Nora feel like she was in a movie. Thomas Brennan sat in the back, a man in his early 40s with kind eyes and an efficient demeanor. "I apologize for the chaos," said as they pulled away from the curb, leaving the reporters shouting questions behind them. Mr. Hayes never intended for this to become public. Someone on the security team spoke to the press. "Is he all right?" Nora asked. "I've been worried. He said he took something." Thomas nodded gravely. "He's stable now, under medical supervision. What you did last night, Miss Sullivan, you may have saved his life. He'd mixed prescription anxiety, medication with alcohol after a particularly difficult day. If you hadn't found him, if you hadn't been kind enough to help despite his condition, the outcome could have been very different." Nora felt her throat tighten. She'd been so focused on the strangeness of the situation that she hadn't fully processed how serious it might have been. They drove for 40 minutes, eventually pulling through the same gates Nora had navigated the night before. In daylight, the estate was even more impressive. Manicured lawns stretched in every direction. The house itself was modern, all glass and steel, built into the hillside with views that probably cost more than entire neighborhoods. Vincent Hayes met them in a library that looked like something from a museum. Floor-to-ceiling shelves held thousands of books. He looked different now, clean-shaven and wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than Nora's car. But his eyes held the same haunted quality she'd seen last night. "Miss Sullivan," he said, his voice steady now, "I owe you an apology and my gratitude. You showed me kindness when I was at my lowest, and you expected nothing in return. That's remarkably rare in my world." Nora stood awkwardly near the door. "I'm just glad you're okay. You really scared me." "I scared myself." He gestured to a chair. "Please sit. I won't keep you long, but I wanted to thank you properly and discuss how we might compensate you for your trouble." "I don't want money," Nora said automatically. Vincent smiled slightly. "I expected you'd say that. Thomas told me you refused payment last night as well. But please understand, my disappearance caused significant disruption. The stock market reacted poorly. Security protocols were activated. People were worried. You resolved a crisis, whether you intended to or not. I just helped someone get home. Exactly. Vincent leaned forward. You saw a human being in trouble, not a billionaire. Not an opportunity. Just someone who needed help. Do you know how long it's been since someone treated me that way? Nora didn't know what to say. The man before her seemed lonely despite all his wealth, isolated despite all his power. My lawyers have prepared several options, Vincent continued. A direct payment, if you'd prefer, a trust fund, investment opportunities. Thomas can walk you through everything. Mr. Hayes, I appreciate this, but I really don't need anything. Perhaps not, he said quietly. But would you allow me to help anyway? Not as payment, but as thanks from one person to another. Before Nora could respond, Thomas's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. Sir, we have a problem. Dmitri Volkov just released a statement. Vincent's jaw tightened. What did he say? He's claiming your episode last night proves you're unfit to lead Helix Technologies. He's calling an emergency board meeting to discuss your removal as CEO. The room fell silent. Nora had no idea who Dmitri Volkov was, but the name alone seemed to carry weight. Vincent stood, walking to the window. Of course he is. He's been waiting for an opportunity like this. Who's Dmitri Volkov? Nora asked. My largest shareholder, besides myself, Vincent said without turning around. A competitor, a vulture who's been trying to take control of my company for 3 years. And I just handed him the perfect ammunition. Thomas was already on his phone, fielding calls. The calm atmosphere had shattered, replaced by urgent energy. Nora felt suddenly invisible, an intruder in a world of corporate warfare she didn't understand. I should go, she said, standing. Vincent turned. Miss Sullivan, I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted this meeting to go. It's fine. You have bigger problems to deal with. As Thomas escorted her back to the car, Nora caught glimpses of activity throughout the house. People rushing with tablets and phones, voices raised in urgent conversation. This was Vincent Hayes's real world, she realized. Not the vulnerable man she'd helped last night, but this realm of billion-dollar decisions and corporate battles. The drive home felt longer than the journey there. Nora stared out the window, processing everything. Her phone continued to buzz with messages. One from her mother stood out. People are saying you could get millions. Think about what this could mean for us. For my medical bills. Guilt twisted in Nora's stomach. Her mother had been struggling since the diagnosis, the same cancer that had taken her father now threatening to take her too. The treatments were experimental, expensive, not covered by insurance. Nora had been working double shifts for months, barely making a dent in the debt. She could accept Vincent's help. She could solve her family's problems with a single conversation. But something about it felt wrong, like accepting payment for basic human decency. As the car pulled up to her apartment, Thomas handed her a folder. Everything we discussed is in here. Take your time reviewing it. No pressure, no expectations. Mr. Hayes genuinely just wants to help. Nora took the folder, feeling its weight. Thank you. Back in her apartment, the news was still covering the story. Now there were additional segments about Dmitri Volkov's statement, about Helix Technologies' stock dropping, about concerns over leadership at one of the country's most valuable companies. Her phone rang again. This time, an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Miss Sullivan, my name is Dmitri Volkov. I believe we should talk. Nora's hand froze on the phone. The voice on the other end was smooth, accented with something Eastern European, and carried the confidence of someone accustomed to getting what they wanted. I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Volkov, Nora said carefully. Please, just 5 minutes of your time. I think you'll find what I have to say quite interesting. He paused. I understand your mother, Patricia Sullivan, is currently undergoing treatment at Memorial Hospital. Stage 3, correct? Those bills must be overwhelming on. A waitress's salary. Ice flooded Nora's veins. How do you know about my mother? I make it my business to know things, Miss Sullivan. It's how I've built my fortune. Now I'm prepared to offer you something Vincent Hayes cannot. Honesty about who he really is. I'm hanging up now. $3 million. Nora's finger hovered over the end call button. That's what I'm offering you, Volkov continued. $3 million, transferred to an account of your choosing within 24 hours. All I need from you is a statement about Vincent's condition last night. The truth, nothing more. You said he was incoherent, confused, possibly suicidal. You were worried about him. Simple facts. Those facts would destroy him. Those facts already exist, Miss Sullivan. I'm simply asking you to confirm them publicly. Vincent Hayes is mentally unstable. He's a danger to himself and to the thousands of employees who depend on Helix Technologies for their livelihoods. The board needs to know the truth, and you're the only witness to his breakdown. Nora's mind raced. $3 million would cover her mother's treatment completely, would pay off the house, would give them security for the first time in years. Her mother could get the experimental therapy the doctors had mentioned, the one with a 70% success rate instead of the standard treatment's 30%. Think about Patricia, Volkov said softly. Think about what this money could mean for her, for both of you. Vincent Hayes will be fine regardless. Men like him always land on their feet. But your mother is running out of time. The line went dead. Nora sat in the silence of her apartment, the folder from Thomas Brennan still unopened on her coffee table. Outside, the news vans had finally dispersed, but she could see people lingering on the street, hoping for a glimpse of the woman at the center of the story. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Coming over. Need to talk. Patricia Sullivan arrived an hour later, looking frailer than she had just a week ago. The chemotherapy had stolen her hair, her color, and much of her energy, but her eyes still held the fierce determination that had raised Nora. Alone after the divorce. Mom, you should be resting. I'll rest when I'm dead, Patricia said, lowering herself onto the couch with visible effort. Which might be sooner than later if we can't figure out this money situation. Don't talk like that. Nora, sweetheart, we need to be realistic. Patricia pulled out her phone, showing Nora a news article. This says Vincent Hayes offered you money and you refused. Is that true? He offered to help. Yes. I haven't decided anything yet. What is there to decide? Patricia's voice rose, frustration bleeding through. Do you know what I would give for an opportunity like this? The experimental treatment Dr. Morrison mentioned costs $200,000. Insurance. Won't touch it, but it could give me 5 more years. 5 years, Nora. Time to see you settled. Maybe meet grandchildren someday. Tears burned in Nora's eyes. I know, Mom. I know. Then why are you hesitating? Pride? Some misplaced sense of nobility? Patricia reached out, taking her daughter's hand. I'm not proud, baby. I'll beg if that's what it takes. Take whatever they're offering. Take all of it. After her mother left, Nora opened the folder Thomas had given her. Inside were several options, each more generous than the last. A direct payment of $5 million, a position at Helix Technologies with a salary that made her dizzy. Stock, options worth potentially tens of millions. Educational opportunities, healthcare coverage for her entire family. At the bottom was a handwritten note from Vincent. No strings attached. Choose whatever feels right or choose nothing at all. You gave me something no amount of money can buy. Simple human kindness. Let me give you something in return. Options. The choice is entirely yours. Nora's phone rang again. Joanna this time. Please tell me you're accepting whatever he offered, her best friend said without preamble. I love you, but you can't turn this down. Think about your mom. Think about your own future. Someone else just offered me money too, Nora said quietly. Dmitri Volkov. Joanna, who worked as an investigative reporter for the local paper, went silent. Nora, listen to me very carefully. Dmitri Volkov is not a good person. I've been researching him all day. He's known for hostile takeovers, for destroying companies and selling them for parts. If he's offering you money, it's because he wants something that will hurt Vincent Hayes. He wants me to tell the truth about that night, about Vincent's condition. And what would that truth do? Nora closed her eyes. It would probably cost Vincent his company. There's your answer then. Look, I'm all for truth in journalism, but there's a difference between reporting facts and weaponizing someone's worst moment. You saw Vincent at rock bottom. Do you really want to be the person who uses that against him? After Joanna hung up, Nora sat alone with her thoughts. The apartment felt smaller than ever, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She thought about her father, how he'd always said that character was defined by what you did when no one was watching, when there was something to gain by doing the wrong thing. She thought about her mother, fading away in stages, time running out with each passing day. She thought about Vincent, alone in his glass mansion, surrounded by wealth, but starved for genuine human connection. The next morning, Nora called Thomas Brennan. "I've made my decision," she said. 2 hours later, she sat across from Vincent in his library once more. He looked tired, older than his 53 years, the stress of the impending board meeting evident in the lines around his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I assume you've reviewed the options." "I have." Nora took a deep breath. "And I appreciate them, truly. But I can't accept any of it." Vincent's expression didn't change. "May I ask your reasoning?" "Because it would feel like I'm being paid for doing the right thing. And once you start putting a price on basic decency, it stops being decent." She paused. "But I do need to ask you for something. Anything. My mother is sick. Terminal, probably, unless she can get treatment we can't afford. I don't want your money, but I'm asking if there's some way, through your company's foundation or medical research programs, that she could access the care she needs. Not as payment to me, but just as something your resources could help with." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. "Your mother's treatment will be covered fully, through Helix's medical research initiative. We'll have her transferred to the best facility in the country. And before you protest, this isn't about you. We fund hundreds of patients every year. She'll simply be one of them." Relief flooded through Nora, so intense she felt lightheaded. "Thank you." "There's something else," Vincent said. He pulled out his phone, showing her a news alert. "Dmitri called a press conference an hour ago. He claimed to have a witness statement from you describing my mental instability." "What?" "I never gave him anything." "I know." "He fabricated it, assumed. You'd either go along to get his money or be too intimidated to deny it publicly." Vincent smiled grimly. "He didn't count on your integrity. Thomas has already released a statement on your behalf clarifying that you never spoke with Volkov and that any alleged statement is fraudulent. Dmitri is currently facing legal action for defamation. Will that stop the board meeting?" "It helps. But the damage is done. The board knows I struggled. They know I made mistakes." He met her eyes. "But you know what I realized? Hiding it, pretending to be invincible, that's what nearly destroyed me. Maybe it's time to be honest about being human." That afternoon, Vincent Hayes held his own press conference. With Nora's permission, he told the full story: his mental health struggles, the medication mix-up, his moment of crisis, and how a waitress who expected nothing in return had helped him find his way home. "I'm not perfect," Vincent told the cameras. "I've spent years trying to appear infallible because I thought that's what leadership required. But real strength is admitting weakness. Real courage is asking for help. I'm taking a temporary medical leave to focus on my health, and I'm establishing a mental health initiative at Helix to ensure our employees have resources I didn't think I needed. The board meeting was postponed. Dmitri Volkov's credibility was shattered. The stock market, surprisingly, responded positively to Vincent's honesty. 3 weeks later, Nora returned to work at the Silver Spoon Diner. Bernie raised his eyebrows when she walked in. "Thought you'd be long gone by now," he said. "Rich and famous? Turns out I like my life just fine," Nora replied, tying on her apron. Her mother's treatment had begun at a cutting-edge research facility, and early results were promising. Nora visited her twice a week, bringing stories from the diner and hope for the future. Vincent called occasionally, brief conversations about books they'd both read or thoughts on the news. A friendship was forming, unlikely but genuine, built on a foundation of mutual respect rather than obligation. One evening, as Nora was closing up, a woman in an expensive coat came in, looking harried and desperate. "Please," the woman said. "I know you're closed, but I'm lost, and my phone died, and I just need to call my daughter." Nora smiled, holding the door open wider. "Come in. Let me get you some coffee while you make your call." As she started a fresh pot, Nora caught her reflection in the diner's windows. She looked the same as she had a month ago, still wearing the same uniform, still working the same shifts. But something fundamental had shifted. She'd been tested, offered everything, and discovered that her values weren't for sale. Her father had been right. Character was what you did when it mattered most. The woman made her call, thanked Nora profusely, and tried to offer money for the coffee. Nora refused with a gentle smile. "Just pay it forward," she said. "Help someone else when they need it." After the woman left, Nora finished closing up. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement outside. The same view she'd seen 1,000 times before. But tonight it looked different, full of possibility and quiet dignity. She locked the door and headed home, content in the knowledge that she'd made the right choice. Not the easy choice, not the profitable choice, but the right one. And in a world that often confused the three, that was worth more than any amount of money could buy.